Today I'll be sitting down with my friend Jason Capps. Jason Capps is an entrepreneur extraordinaire. The guy has found a way to make a living doing whatever he wants to do. It's amazing, it's fun, it's exciting. How he started is interesting, where he came from is interesting. All of it is great stuff. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my time with Mr. Jason Capps.
So the premise of the podcast is to basically take entrepreneurs, people who have done something really cool with their life or with their business, and just tell their story. I want to inspire other entrepreneurs. I want other entrepreneurs to see this and say, "Wow, I could do that too," or want nothing to do with that. That is too dangerous for me. That's kind of how I want it to unfold. And through that, I just want to kind of get to know you and let the people get to know you because you're an interesting guy. So, you grew up in Washington, PA.
That's right.
And were you always? I consider you an entrepreneur. You're not just a guy who had a cool idea. You are somebody who is a business person, start to finish, and you just brought your passions to life through that. Were you always an entrepreneur? Is that something you did early on?
Well, I would say yes. I mean, I had my first paper route. I guess you're an entrepreneur when you're carrying newspapers, or you're a subcontractor.
Yeah.
For the Observer Reporter, I carried 40, 50 papers around for years, and then shoveling driveways, snow, cutting grass, firewood.
I was going to say, did you ever have a lawn mowing business?
Not an official business. I mean, my dad used to make me cut our grass first, and then if I still had energy and some gas left in the tank, I could go do the neighbors and make $5. But
got to take care of home first. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, right.
But obviously, you're known to many people for your culinary expertise. You're a chef first.
Yes.
Right. And so, at what age did you decide, I'm going to take this necessary skill that every human being needs to have in some way and say, I'm going to make this a career. I need to make food for a living.
Every year, Washington being the home of Pony League baseball, and baseball being popular all the way from Pinto League through Colt League, let's say. And I excelled in baseball. I tried all sports, but baseball was where I found my groove. And on the pitcher's mound was where I thrived, per se. And I would typically make the All-Stars every year. I don't think I missed it.
Did you have a good fastball? Baseball, was it like a knuckleball? What did you use?
I had a pretty dastardly curveball.
Okay.
Like I could throw it in fairly fast and it just broke it away. You know what I mean? I'm right-handed, and I wasn't the fastest. Yeah, but if you got a hold of it, if it hung out there, boy, those just some of my buddies would stick it over the fence. But after baseball season, I would go to New Jersey to visit my grandparents, my father's side. My mom's 100% Italian from Washington. Her parents, my grandparents, were from Puglia in Italy here. But my father's side was English, and my grandparents had a restaurant. They started in the 40s selling steak sandwiches at the Cowtown Rodeo outside of Atlantic City. Yeah. And they made a lot of money. They both had full-time jobs and careers, and but they gradually, sold enough sandwiches and birch beer to build a brick-and-mortar restaurant called the Hickory Steakhouse. And I used to visit there every year after the baseball season. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of wild. I wrote a little piece recently about it. My parents would walk me onto the airplane, Pittsburgh Airport. My grandparents would send me the money for the ticket. My parents, they'd put me on the plane, literally walk on the plane, set me down.
Unaccompanied minor.
And unaccompanied minor starting at age 6 until I was probably 12, 13, whatever, and eventually drove or something. I don't know. And then my grandparents would walk on the plane and take me off. So they had a restaurant, and I would just walk to the kitchen. I remember vividly just walking through the kitchen, and there would be from the back door, the ladles, the soup, bain-maries of soup for the servers to self-serve. And I would just always pick up the ladle and ask the cooks what kind of soup this was and what's in it. And they were like, that's cream of broccoli. It's got broccoli and onions and cream and, whatever. And I just thought, man, these guys pay attention to me. It's so cool. And they're in the tall hats. And, there was Charlie, Pedro, and Donald. Okay. It was basically Puerto Rican, African-American, and white guy. Yeah. But they're all really tall hats. And they were just super kind to me all the time. And I'd ask questions about steak sandwiches, French fries, whatever. I didn't realize at the time they were being nice to me because my grandparents owned the place, really. But didn't matter. The impact on me was that, gosh, if you put some ingredients together, it smells good in here all the time. we would go out to eat all the time at other restaurants. And my grandparents' rule was you can order anything you want on the menu. If you don't eat it, you have to pay for it. And we would go to great restaurants in Philadelphia, not Michelin star quality, but just really good quality restaurants. And so I was exposed to both the entrepreneur side, that's watching them, to count the money at the end of the night, deal with customers, have great relationships with people enjoying the food. So it was kind of a cooking / money. My wheels were turned. I'm like, wow, if I could cook and open a restaurant, I could make money. But eventually my uncle took over the business. My father got killed when I was 17 months old. Oh, wow. We lived in the Dominican Republic. They were school teachers. My father didn't want anything to do with the restaurant business. Yeah. His brother, my Uncle Ross, did. Okay. So he was the heir apparent, and my father and mother were school teachers, and they wanted to travel. So they graduated college. I came soon thereafter, and they moved to Santo Domingo, where they were able to get out of all the places they applied in the world to get teaching jobs and art and English teachers. And, my father got killed in an accident. He was 25. My mom moved back to the United States eventually and married my godfather, actually, from Monongahela. And so, I lived he was a coal miner. We didn't have a lot of money. We had, Keds. We didn't have Nikes,
You could have been raised down in Dominican Republic, but because
I would have most certainly been. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I mean, I maybe another podcast we could talk about my experience going back there. Yeah. In 2016. Okay. And having I would say near spiritual experience. Yeah. Meeting the people that lived in the house it goes so many layers. My kids and it's one of the
yeah, that would be amazing to take like a film crew back for that, with you, like just to see what, to retrace those steps and because that happened at such an early age, but still I had no idea about that. That's wow.
It dipped into just 2 years ago when a guy called me from Thousand Oaks or Mendocino, California, and said that he had something for me, and it was a belt that my father wore. My mom had asked this guy, a friend of my dad mentored this kid. He was 19. He asked him to, my mom said, can you come help dress Doug's body for the funeral? They were shipping him back to the United States. They had a military funeral to get his body out there. And my mom ended up giving this guy a belt that he loved that my father wore as a token, and said, if you can find my son after I'm gone someday to give this to him.
Are you serious?
And he called me. He found me.
This story is amazing.
I get goosebumps, man. Yeah. He found me and sent it to a box. There's pieces of that about him losing it and recovering it, and it's pretty wild. His name's Hugh Kelly, and the more we got to be friends. I'm going to fly out and see him. I was going to fly and get the belt, but at timing in my travels and stuff, he just said, I want this out of my house so that I know that I've served my mission.
His job,
And but he's like, my dad was in The Godfather, the movie. We lived in Dominican Republic where they filmed some of the movie, and it's just nuts. My story is just.
There's so many layers
different.
To your story.
I don't think it's any better than worse.
What was I thinking doing an hour here with you? It would have been like 5 or 6 hours. We really dug deep. But wow, that's a crazy, really cool story though. Wow. So I just want to go back because it goes into where we're going next, which is obviously I want to go into you're jumping into the catering business now, because I'm going to skip past high school. Did you go to college?
Yeah.
Okay.
I found I wanted to be possibly FBI. I knew I was always going to be in the food business. Seeing what my grandparents built and my uncle taking it over, he somewhat quickly sold the restaurant as my grandparents aged. He realized that he could do catering and make more money in a single day doing events, big events. We're talking 5 to 10, 12,000 people. Yeah. For major casinos in Lake City, and therefore it was like counting dollars versus nickels in the restaurant business. So I saw that, and that was very influential. And he's since moved his operation to Westchester, PA, bought an old picnic park, old amusement park, and converted it to a picnic park, and would do large-scale picnics every weekend, and $3 and $4 million worth of picnics in 6 months. And so somewhere between that and catering, not wanting to be in the restaurant business, I evolved out of criminal justice. I said, forget the FBI. I don't want to investigate white collar crime, but I want to cook, and I knew that. So I went back to what I loved, went to culinary school, did 97% of a 3-year culinary apprenticeship through CCAC in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
They had a culinary program, and I skipped the pastry segment of the program to cater a dog show for the American Kennel Association or something, AKC or whatever, at Mingo Creek Park for 10,000 people, to be the sole vendor of that. And so I knew the associate's degree in applied science versus I'm an entrepreneur anyway. I was catering people's, how do you say it? In high school, I would take people, doctors, friends of mine, I would take them dinners and lunch, on the weekends and do things. I hustled.
So I was going to say, you sitting behind a desk pushing around papers for white collar crimes does not really sound like the kind of gig that you would want to do.
No, and I just, my love for food goes deep. I mean, that everything, what I just told you is about primarily my father's side. My mother's side, Italian, my grandma Greco.
Yeah.
My grandfather passed before I was ever born, but my grandma Greco grew up, basically, her house was next to ours in Franklin Farms Road in Washington. So we had, it was suburbia just outside the city. So we had an acre, we had 3 or 4 acres. She had a few. So our houses were on top of each other, but I used to go over and watch her cook, talk to her. She was very simple, lived very modest life. And, I always laughed because her electric bill was like $13 a month and ours was $60. And I never knew how that was. She had a light on where the room she was in, and she just, but she cooked really kind of rustic. And I just ate pasta and broccoli and whatever else, pizza, whatever else she made every day.
Because the kitchen's the center of the home, center of the family. That's where we want to be. I mean, we learned that in my family. We're like you. We're always going. Always got places to go. But when COVID shut us down, that was my favorite part. I mean, we literally spent our day planning the dinner.
Yeah.
Like, let's get this. We were growing things. It became much more important. And I started to understand, I'm not Italian. My wife's a little Italian. I'm now understanding why the whole culture for you, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Food is so important, obviously, to our life, but to gather in the kitchen and cook together and do that together was just amazing. That was the one
I agree.
blessing from COVID that I found.
Right.
Twice now you've mentioned the catering side of it. Now, your first actual catering business was Greco to go or Gourmet to go?
On paper, as far as a Pennsylvania S corporation, Greco's Gourmet to go. I opened in May of 1999. It was kind of when the soccer mom was becoming a thing. Life was busy to the extent where mom was taking, Johnny to soccer practice and, Nancy to choir or whatever else she did, softball, or whatever. And I positioned myself next to the guitar gallery in Cannesburg, Cannesburg. And the moms would drop their kids off for guitar lessons, but they lived in usually Peters or even Upper St. Clair. Yeah. And that's, by the time they left, they would have to come back. So they sat in the parking lot. My exhaust fan, because there was a residence above this building, blew straight out into the parking lot. And so more indirectly, I didn't plan it that way. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
I would blow the smell of, sauteed shrimp scampi and stuff out into their cars, and they would just like wander in like the Pied Piper kind of drifting in the door. And catering was always on my mind. I knew that that's the real way. This was a little gourmet store to kind of a storefront to basically have an operation in a commercial kitchen from which I could cater,
Yeah. And then I don't want to skip over that too quickly because obviously there's innovation there to see. Again, this is a podcast for entrepreneurs, but what you saw was an opportunity because more than anything along the way, you don't need a great location as much as you need a hungry group in your situation. You need hungry people.
Absolutely.
And so you found a scenario where like, I can sell what is high quality food at a reasonable time.
So I didn't have a menu per se. For catering, I always just customized the menu. I remember during the 100th anniversary of the Washington Courthouse that same year. Catering is in my blood. I think I found a niche early on about how to recreate a food for a number of people in a setting that may or may not have been conducive to typical dinner per se, not in their living room, maybe in a field behind their house or some other, place, a park or pavilion, where I was able to just kind of get my head behind the idea of, okay, if I par cook this a certain way and have the grill to finish it, these steaks will come off the grill and be absolutely perfect, and they'll feel like they're in a restaurant. And I think that's what gave me early success in the catering business. That gateway to that bigger strategy, of which I learned from my uncle about catering, was through that little gourmet to go and having that kitchen. But I mean, some of our best work comes from mistakes, truthfully. I remember one time I was doing a barbecue. It was a pig roast, and I bought this shiny new pig cooker out of Iowa, and it was several $1,000s and had thermostat on it, no timer. It was basically just a trailer, burners. It had thermostat. I said, well, I'm going to set this thing at 225, and I'm going to run to Walmart to get buns, 500 hot dog and hamburger buns. Yeah. And I'll never forget it. I left, flew there, came back. Never even thought for a second there'd be any issues. I came down 19, coming past King's at the stoplight. I look at my building, Guitar Gallery, Greco's, and Chadwick's Lawn, and there was this big pillar of smoke coming up, like the building was on fire. Yeah. I knew it wasn't the building, it was my pig. And so I blew the red light, whipped in there. This is like 11 o'clock at night. Nobody's really around. And I opened that thing, and the flames just engulfed me. All right, took me down. And I had a red Nautica, kind of a fleece thing on, similar to this actually, the long sleeve and warmer. It was like October, and I was on fire. And I literally did the stop, drop, and roll, and put myself out and smelled all that burnt hair, and basically, went in and pulled off the party, and everything was great. And I think 2 weeks later, I forgot about the. No, not at all. Those aren't something. That's an 84 packing. Pig in the fridge. Yeah, it was a 150-pound pig. It was a big animal. 2 weeks later, I forgot about the beef in the oven. I was so tired from, I did what I call booking. I'd book it and I'd cook it. I'd take the order, go to the site, see the people, talk about it, get everything organized, and come back and, plan the strategy of preparation or whatever. And one time I was so tired, I literally fell asleep at my house. I lived behind in Glen Cannon. And I said, oh, my God, my beef. And I forgot that it was in the oven. Yeah. And I went down, and it was like dead. It was supposed to be a carving station, medium rare, kind of like a steamship round where you carve it. It was dead. It was, in the jus, but it was completely dead. So I said, holy shit, what am I going to do? And it was not a big fancy party, but I just called the client and said, listen, we have a little problem with the beef. Everything else is absolutely perfect, but you'll understand when I get there. I'm adapting and overcoming, kind of like the Marine philosophy. And I basically pulled the beef and made a jus, a thicker gravy with mushrooms, and then made like a horseradish cream, and I served it as a sandwich. It's our fork tender beef that's on the menu today. So
look at that.
It's so some of our
that's amazing. Some
of our best works or inventions are by accident. Absolutely. And that's one that's 25 years old, almost probably amazing. Within. So
that concept happened from accident. You fell asleep from working hard. Next thing you know, you came up with a menu item you can't get anywhere else. Because that's it. Man, I have so many questions as you're talking. Like I want to stop them, but I want to let you go too because it's good information. What goes when it comes to like a catering business? Everyone makes something really good at home, right? And someone eats it and says, you should open a restaurant. You should get into catering because you made a good hamburger, right? Right. But then I obviously, we know each other through weddings. I see it. My job at the wedding is to make sure that dinner can be served in the time frame that it's supposed to be served, right?
Yeah, so, you got to keep it moving.
Right, because there's so many elements that have to be hot and ready at the exact same time. And that is not, is it an exact science? Yeah,
it's I think it eventually evolves into a system and a procedure and a process. I mean, all those keywords that, accountability. I mean, I could go, right. We'll probably eventually talk about things like accountability and, the culture that Bella Sera has.
Sure.
And it's not by accident. It didn't happen overnight. And some of it was by accident, trial and error, honestly, and finding
like fork tender beef.
Yeah, exactly. And finding good people that see and share the vision. Just never being completely satisfied with the way things went.
Right.
Somebody may walk in the kitchen, or the bride's parents may gush and go crazy. And we have, I think, probably 400 plus accounting 5-star reviews with the not. We're still to this day always thinking about, what Jimmy in the kitchen and all of my other chefs. It's the one thing I said, just keep the ones that would worked out well over the long haul, the ones that are constantly trying to evolve, get better, doing, I think, what I call high quality food, starting with great ingredients, of which the number one thing is the people per se, and they're not remotely close to an ingredient, but I mean, once you have that person in place, that his or her philosophy on how to continuously evolve and get better and think of ways that, and rarely is it about saving money. I mean, when those lines intersect where we can do something better, faster, more efficient, obviously now with labor, labor has always been an increasing barometer of how successful you can be and how much you can afford to pay people, sure, retain them, create that trust and that relationship where they're happy and comfortable.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that because, and I want to just hit on something you just said. You can tell the places that are going to do well because you can open up, and we're talking about Bella Sera now, which is, and we'll just jump to it right this second. Bella Sera became, I don't want to say overnight. Clearly to you, it probably wasn't overnight, but to a lot of us who work in the wedding industry, it seemed like it was an overnight success where everyone had to have their wedding at this beautiful Washington County facility that was Tuscan inspired, just the most beautiful building. And you could have easily, because, and I was going to say this earlier, that it did start with good food. A lot of clients and whatnot who've said to me that they love Bella Sera, first they tasted the food or had been there to a wedding. Food was the first thing they remembered, which is obviously, I'm assuming, a good thing to you, near and dear to your heart, because food is clearly important. But
absolutely.
And I don't know if you know this. I think I've told you this. I was a guest. I didn't work it, but I was a guest at the first ever wedding at Bella Sera. And so,
oh my gosh! I remember that wedding.
Yeah, and we can talk about it. But from that day until literally here we are in 2024, you're always improving it. There are venues I go to, and we just passed one. My daughter and I driving the other day, and I said, if you walk into that building, my first wedding that I worked there was probably in 2004. I bet you it looks exactly the same, and the food probably tastes the same. But Bella Sera continues to innovate, continues to do better things, and it's geared to making sure that couples walk away with a better experience than the last one. Always.
You nailed it. You really did. And you of all people have had a chance to watch it evolve and see it literally from that day one as a guest to where we are potentially now. Last weekend. I mean, I don't know. I always think that if we can do things better, but at the same time, keep the quality up. I mean, that's just really my thing. The marker is to buy the better quality ingredients, to take the time to prepare the fresh ingredients using fresh, not frozen vegetables. I think innovating our style maybe a little less than the actual menu. Like, we really try to keep the roots in Italian food. Doesn't mean I can't throw a mean quesadilla together, right, and Jimmy and my staff, but that's kind of where my roots are. I certainly did not expect to be sitting here per se in Tuscany. At this point in time doing this podcast with you. And if you'd asked me in 2005 when I borrowed, $2.5 million, you know what I mean? Like, to build this place. And they said, your mortgage is going to be, $26,000 a month. You okay with that? I'm like, absolutely not. But we don't have a choice at this point, you know?
And it's funny because in catering, you didn't really have to borrow money, right? Didn't you get paid prior before you even present the?
That was Lubbock. Yeah. That was beautiful. I borrowed $50,000. That was my first loan per se. That was for the storefronts, an SBA micro loan.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the SBA programs that are, guaranteed loans through a local bank. But the program I owe a lot of thanks to, and the people such as is the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center.
Right.
I can, Ann Dugan, when I moved back from New York, I was the catering chef at Dean and DeLuca. I learned a lot. It was my last hurrah as an employee, per se, before I felt like I had enough knowledge and know-how to come back and do this for myself. So I came back, full of, we'll say, piss and vinegar, ready to roll. Yeah. And Ann said, relax, you need a business plan. Yeah. And I said, what is this thing you call business plan?
Good food.
She's like, right. Yeah, right. It's going to put on paper how much it costs to, build the process so that you can open your door, first of all, how much it's going to cost to sustain it on a daily basis, including your rent and your projections. And I did things like traffic counts and demographic studies, too, in a microcosmic way, nothing outlandish, but I did some things that I could put on paper. You really need to do is prove that a business will work on paper. Nowadays, there's this digital world that we all dwell in now, even amplified farther with AI and whatnot. But you can kind of fly with an idea right now and strike it rich quickly in that digital world. Okay. Yes. My world is only quasi-digital. I mean, we can advertise and market there, but it comes down to it. You're going to come in, there's going to be marriages, there's going to be funerals, there's going to be corporate events or whatnot, and they're a physical thing. So we need to figure out how to accomplish all that successfully. And we've been able to do it over the years, but that business plan put on paper, if you can just do this many people per se, or meals, or put this many asses in seats on a given weekly basis, then you can times that by 50 or 52 and accounting for holidays and some weather and some other variables. But that's where the catering world for me and the events are very widely from the restaurant. I remember my uncle used to say, so why would I want to make 25 gallons of New England clam chowder and hope people show up to eat it when I could go get a check, or they drop a check off to me. I buy the ingredients for the clam chowder, and 3 days before, prep the thing, and I've got the pot of soups in there already paid for with profit built in.
Right.
And whether they show up or not to eat it or not, I'm still getting paid. So those things resonated with me early on too. So I worked in a lot of places where it was other people's money, and I treated it like it was mine, some startups and various things. I have some horror stories about the kitchen. I mean, just things that I got abused. I mean, you talk about like what you can't get away with today. Right. I'll never forget on Easter Sunday, I worked at Seabrook near Kiowa in Charleston, South Carolina. And the chef, we'll just call him Frank. It's his real name, but I won't mention his last name.
For reasons,
tough, hardcore. And I wasn't even in the kitchen per se. I was the executive steward of the island. It was my job to make sure all of the buffets were set up at the various parts of the golf courses and for events and different things for the members and whatnot. And it was Easter Sunday. And we had worked, I'm going to say 18 hours for 2 days straight to get ready, because we had a huge, big multi-day golf outing thing right up against that. And I just remember being completely exhausted. And I lived on the island, and he was like, you go home and you get 4 hours of sleep. And if you're not back here by 6 a.m., I'm coming to your house and grabbing you by your nap, whatever this hair was I had back here. What do you call it? A mullet? I'm grabbing you by your mullet and dragging your ass to work. And he said, I'm going to kick your ass, and I'm like, yes, chef.
Whatever you say, sir. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, now that would be considered like,
It's a little different.
So, but along those lines, I've learned my share of, in the world of, managing employees, and what I pushed the boundaries of what you could quote get away with, because sometimes I'd be faced with somebody who didn't give a shit, and my mentality was, well, how could you not care? Well, it's not their business. So but when I finally started to attract those kind of people that treated it like theirs, and therefore then I can in turn compensate them fairly, we've evolved into profit sharing for this year.
That's great.
It's taken that long to get to that particular point. Although, I feel like I've been what I say considered generous with benefits and time off. And, if an employee needed to borrow money to get through a rough patch, or something was going on at home and they needed an extra few days, I would be the guy more often than not that would give them as much as I could without jeopardizing
Because
the
you're a human
business
being,
per se.
and you're putting all of your faith. I mean, obviously, you're living in Italy right now, so you're putting all of your faith in the people, and so you need people that you can trust,
Yeah,
that you love,
absolutely.
and that you
Yes.
feel like they're family because they never do
Yes.
anything to hurt you, and therefore you do what
Absolutely.
you. And that's
Yeah.
and I can tell you that I deal with a lot of the people that you've trusted, and you've done a great job. They're
Thanks.
really
Yeah.
excellent people, and
I always give it straight away to them. Like if you say that to me, I say it's them. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like I've helped that process along
sure,
early on. We've learned how to attract that kind of vision and passion in the people. There's times that there's that philosophy of hire slow, fire fast.
yeah,
I've been a victim of letting people stay longer
yeah.
than potentially could, and have that culture of negativity or something. But we've learned to, I feel like we're in a really good place.
To just go back to, you said that in the catering business, you like to know what you're doing way ahead of time. Money's coming in for the event. It's all paid and clear. So when you went to the bank and said, I need to borrow $2.5 million, I'm going to say, you give me $2.5 million and I will find a way to give it back to you over the next 20, 30 years. What goes into that mentality? Like, where do you get the gravitas to say, I got this?
Yeah.
Is it through the research? Did you say I did the research? I know I'll be fine.
Well, I had that, the let's say the SBDC had my back. Ann Dugan was the pivotal part early on of getting me to that business phase in part one.
Yeah.
Ray Bargo was kind of my go-to and remains to this day, involved with the SBDC and the University of Pittsburgh. People always say, I want to start a business. What do I do? What's your not opinion? What would you recommend?
Yeah.
And I the first thing, get a business plan, go write a business plan, go to the SBDC. They're an SBA funded program. It's free. They work through Duquesne University, Pitt University, and chances are whatever city you are in the United States, a college nearby, a bigger university most likely has an SBDC branch.
Right.
That'll help you understand and work through this early on part. So when you have not their back, but you have the tutelage of their expertise, we wrote the numbers out. If I can do 62 weddings, that's 22,000 each, and this and that, and the bills are this, and the cost, and the electric should be this much, and the construction cost. All that said and done, you're going to figure out you're going to probably lose money the first year. You're hopefully going to break even the second, and start to show a little profit the third year.
I wonder if the business plan, because like you said, with the digital age now, you could start a business tomorrow without any thought, is there even money here to be made?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that business plan, the reason that they have your back is because they can look at the metrics. You did the work. You know it's going to work. If you're going to start a business, lay it out. Where's the money coming from?
Yeah.
What can you even do what you think you can do? And that's
right.
And 62 weddings is a lot for opening a venue tomorrow. But you knew eventually you get there, and now you're past that.
I had the vision that we could do it, and the other thing is, I believe offering somebody a unique either experience or product or service that they may be able to get somewhere else, but what's going to differentiate you and make your experience there, their time there, their painting of their house better?
Yeah. Are
you more responsive than the other guy? Do you do better work on the overall project? Is your follow-up? Is your continual checking, whatever that whole process is in the industry you're in? It could be brief. It could be, fast food, a sandwich. And how do you handle problems and situations? I made some major mistakes, man. I mean, I'm far, far from perfect. And to this day, I just try to either learn from it, carry it forward. If we do something that just wasn't up to par for the client or their expectations, we try to over deliver, all the time. And we strive for that overall satisfaction above and beyond.
Sure.
But if we do fall short on a given time, we look at it and really look at it and say, what did we do wrong? How can we change and evolve and come out of this better?
Yeah.
Because, way back at the beginning, I used to say I was the one that called the client, okay, and apologized.
Yeah.
And then, as time went on, as I started to eventually pull back, and I never really wanted to scale this business to own multiple banquet halls. I'm not what I consider to be a greedy person where I need millions and millions and prestige and ego. And I'm, I have my moments, but I try to remain as humble as possible. I've been very blessed and very grateful for all that's been given me and all I've worked for, and I think if there's any amount of luck involved, it's less than 1% in the end. I believe that, you put out there, you get back what you put out there. We're generous with charities when we can be. And, we just have evolved overall. So
that's what I was going to say about with the charities. I know that you guys are involved in a bunch. You're very focused on being a green building.
Mm-hmm.
You're protecting the investment. You're protecting the environment. You're doing all those things. But you also, I think, are very good with your community. Whenever we do the tasting at Bella Sera, you invite all the local hotels who technically in some situations are competition for things. You invite them in. They're part of it. Community over competition it seems to be a mentality that you're proud of, that you're like, hey, we're part of this community too, and that's, so it's, I
think there's enough to go around per se. I mean, to think that I deserve it all or need it all is silly,
No, you do deserve it all, but do you need it all? That's the question.
I don't mind sharing because my end game is probably slightly different. I'm 100% owner, so I have no shareholders that I answer to, or no corporate structure other than being an S corp with a couple LLCs and so on. But I'm often, I just think about how much is enough, and I feel like I don't know. I'm there probably in the sense that I just don't need airplanes and helicopters and yachts and stuff.
But they say when you buy a helicopter, the two best days are the day you buy it and the day you sell it.
I might end up with a little boat down in Florida one of these days.
I think that's
something
necessary.
To fish off of.
But
I want to catch some dinner for my boat.
Yeah, but I want to get to where this all has brought you, and just watching it, because this is not something I've experienced, maybe one day, but it's clear to me that you are, I mean, obviously since you were a young kid, you've been traveling, but clearly you're doing something that I think you're very passionate about. Not that you weren't passionate about the other stuff, but this is like Jason's thing. You didn't call it Jason's Banquet Hall. You called it Bella Sera. This is Jason's journeys. This is what we want to do. And if I could just briefly tell you what I love about it, and then I want you to talk as much as you want about it. But your tours, when I see them, it takes, for me, when I think about going to Europe, I've never been, the furthest I've been is Alaska, but it's still America, okay? So I stay in my country because I don't speak the language. I don't know where I'm going, and I wouldn't know how to ask somebody where to go, right? I wouldn't know how to properly prepare for it. Your tours appear to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you are an expert on these areas, and you can take guests and give them an actual or beautiful trip. Because if I go to Italy, I'm going to have FOMO for the rest of my life going, did I miss this? Should I have seen that? You're preventing that.
There's a lot here. Just think about the United States, how vast it is, how many different terrains, how many different cuisines, what they eat in Boston on the Cape, scallops, shrimp, lobster is not, although in some capacity, not the same, at least preparation wise, as they eat in New Orleans or the Gulf versus New Mexico or Seattle, okay, or Chicago. So so that's a vast country, or USA. Italy's vast and it's much smaller. I'm in Tuscany, I'm in Lucca. I could be in Pisa if I drive right now, 40 minutes. I could be in Florence in an hour. I can be in Milan 3 hours and Rome in 3 hours. Cinque Terre an hour and a half, so on. It's much more accessible. And my point is within that, even from here, I'm in a little tiny village called Domazzano. Okay. It's between Borgo a Mazzano and Lucca, the town of Lucca itself. What may be popular here in this tiny village of 300 up on the hill, may be popular in Lucca, but you go another 25, 30 minutes or just get outside of Tuscany or the immediate area, the shapes of the pasta change, the styles of the sauce may change. The method they prepare it may change. The name will definitely change. What is called tortelli here is called some kind of ravioli or some other thing, on the other side of the border, so to speak. I mean, there's no borders, but you know what I mean? Once you leave Tuscany, or even in Livorno, the caciucco is a seafood dish that's called something else when you get on above Pisa, and they're only 30 minutes away. So my point to all that, it's vast, and I miss things all the time. I mean, like, there's not any one way to capture all of it. What I think I've done, and what I'm extremely passionate about, is get lost, wander around. I mean, ask my daughters. Before GPS was even a thing, before they were babies, taking my daughters with an atlas and tried to find the best place to pesto in the world. According to the New York Times, it's a village called Pra, which is about 30 minutes north of Genova, in the Ligurian, Riviera, the Italian Riviera. We found this village. It's no bigger than the one I'm nearby, and drove by it 20 times before I realized the restaurant. Found Johnny and why he made the best pesto, and talked to him. And we ended up going back there and filming an episode for kind of a pilot I was working on at one point, about traveling and in search of like the best pesto and so on. But bringing all that full circle, I have been able to find things often by accident, maybe some research. But, I always loved Carrara marble, all right? So I contacted a friend who actually was here yesterday. They live in Spain now, in Formentera. They came for lunch yesterday, and I cooked for them, him and his wife, Alberto and Julia. They're from Carrara. He's from Carrara. So through my friend, one of my first contacts, Alessandra, back in 2015 or whatever, I bought apartments here in 2014 inside Lucca walls. And, I've been here 50 plus times, and now I've been here since May. By the way, I'm not fluent yet. I'm learning.
A lot more than how's your Duolingo streak going? You got a good Duolingo streak?
I'm on 675 days, I think.
There you go.
So I might have to put wood on this fire. Can I take a second? I don't want to put my, hold on. Yeah. Just to keep it moving. But my point kind of is that, let's say Carrara, I've always been fascinated with that marble. I mean, it's beautiful white, and Michelangelo used it to carve the David, and it's this pure white marble, which is typically soft per se. Oh, here's Carrara marble right here, my coasters, and these are from my buddy Walter at the museum right next to the. So anyway, I said, what if we could go to Carrara and I don't know, talk to some artists or see something? And my friend said, I found this guy that does these little mini museum things, and you can also go in the caves. And I'm like, oh my God, you could drive into the cave. And so now, and then after that, I said, can we do something a little exciting? And she said, well, yeah, you can take 4x4s to the top of the highest mountain of Carrara. It's a mountain made of marble. There's 3 valleys, 3 villages. Fentoscritti is where we go. We take Range Rovers to the top of the mountain, and you can look down and see the entire the coast. Truly, you can see where they built the port to be able to get the marble down the mountain, which was a feat, like pyramid status type feat of getting these slabs of marble down the hill.
You mean like the Egyptians had to do it. They had to do it with the marble.
Absolutely, yeah. Down onto the boat so it could get to Rome, and they could, work with it there and carve it. We're talking 1,000 years ago. So these are the kind of experiences I grab onto. I'm not the first one ever thought of it, but I feel like I can capture a lot of this energy for people and take care of some of that heavy lifting in terms of planning. In a small group setting. We look for good dynamics in the groups, and we encourage people. I always talk to everybody before they sign up. But now I've evolved. So Tuscany was my first one, called 10 Days in Tuscany. And then we gravitated towards the Amalfi Coast because we listened. People said, after the couple tours, people said, you want to do something else? Why don't you take us to another part of Italy? And so I fed off of that, made a couple calls to talk to other people that had been and say, if I did an Amalfi Coast trip, would you go? And they said, absolutely. And so they were good enough friends, or at least associates, that I knew that I could trust them and they would go, and planned that one. And the same thing happened in the north between Venice and Lake Como. And We visit Parma and Bologna and Modena and Maranello, and learn about cheese, prosciutto di Parma, prosciutto and Parmigiano Reggiano, and a lot of things along the way. So my tours always have I would say, a food component to it. You know, why wouldn't it? First of all, right? It's amazing what kind of, like, I call it street cred I get here when I just walk. You know, I don't walk into a restaurant and say, "Hi, I'm Jason, I'm a chef."
Yeah.
Right? It's not the first words out of my mouth. To sit down and have a meal.
Right.
At some point during the course of a meal, if it's fabulous, I may say something like, "Hey, man, I'm in the food business, and tell that chef that pasta was like right on the money." And it's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And then, "Oh, I'm a chef and I own a catering company." "Oh my gosh!" And the chef comes out. Next, you know, I'm in the kitchen talking to him. So it's happened no less than 50, 75 times, and that's where a lot of these relationships were cultivated.
Sure.
Doors seem to swing open when food becomes the subject.
Yeah. No, it makes, again,
you know,
that's an overriding theme.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what unites every single one of us. We all need it. We all like good, good food.
Yes.
And what, again, back to what I love about it, is that, if I go to New York City, I'm probably not leaving Times Square too much. I mean, it's the tourist center, but when you go to Italy, you're really only going to do it maybe once in your life, twice maybe. The rest of us, not you, but the rest of us, we go there once or twice. You obviously don't want to miss anything, but to be able to have that experience, to go to a restaurant that a local like yourself can not only recommend but can take you through the process. I think it's a brilliant idea, because if Kevin did Kevin's journeys, no one's going to go. But you obviously have a reputation for really knowing your way around. If I'm going to Europe in any way, Italy's one of them. You're the guy I'm calling, for that.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I'd love to show you around. I mean, that's really what it is. I'm just taking a small group of people and who I believe have common interests, and trusting in me, obviously, to do what you just said, and take them through experiences. And there's a group dynamic and an energy about a group, and some groups like to shop more and say, "Hey, can we, skip that little museum tour and have a couple hours of shop in Bologna," or whatever it may be. And I do my best to adapt, but I feel like I am so, I don't know what's the word, driven, enthused. Like I can literally, if you had like not a lie detector, but like a pulse, what do you call it? Just if you check my pulse, 2 minutes before talking about doing this tour or sharing Italy with people, and then immediately thereafter, I know I'm gaining 10 beats a minute or whatever. I'm
going crazy.
It excites me. And I made an Instagram post. I was about 2 months ago. I'll try to keep this short. So I'm in the countryside. I can see down along the way. I have 2.5 acres. I since sold my apartments, like I said, inside the walls of Lucca. I wanted to be in the country, and the whole experience of how I got here is another probably worthy podcast, but fun story.
We got to do this again.
Anyway, so I'm a little bit remote, let's just say. There's a mountain that I see when the sun comes up over here in the east, and I looked over here. There's this mountain way up there. I'm just like, I'm going to make it up there one of these days. I'm just curious. So I walk and I get my steps in the neighborhood 4 to 5 times a week. I've since lost weight. I weigh less than I did when I first got here in May, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
A lot of pasta and pizza and bread later, and cheese and wine and so on. But so I walk almost every day if I can. And so I do this lap around through the community and the neighborhood and say hi to a couple of people I see out in their garden or whatever. And I said, one day it was beautiful. It was in October. I said, I'm gonna start making my way up there. And there's 1,000 olive trees on this hillside. They're everywhere here. Lucca is known for its olive oil. Chianti is this. My friends at Bella Sera and Greve and Chianti, they're known for wine. They're more known for wine. They have olives and olive oil production, but Lucca is known for its oils far and away more so than the wine. So the trees were everywhere. And I made it all the way up there, and I realized what it was, and I didn't know at the time, but I asked somebody afterwards. It was a World War II bunker. It was the view was stunning. I could see for 25 miles. I swear to God, it was clear. Yeah. I could see probably almost if I could get over this one hill with my eye, I would have been able to see the coast on the other side of Pisa. But I'm like, man, this is cool. So there was bunkers, and I said, what is this up here? It was a military place as a vantage point. You could see the trenches where they dug for the soldiers to be down inside when the planes would come overhead, and they had bunkers. And so I since read up on it. So I wanted to show my girlfriend, and I talked about it. Came home, I was all excited. I was like, yeah, go check this place out.
Yeah.
It's like anybody, man. You find a great restaurant, you find a great experience, a great song, great book. What do? You tell people. Yeah. So I get back and I tell her and so on. So we're doing these things called Thirsty Thursday now. So we're doing like drink recipes every Thursday. We're doing Foodie Friday, Thirsty Thursday. So wherever we're traveling, we find a cocktail we like in the bartender or whatever. And in this one, we took these packet cocktails that are a little streamlined. It's so they're like Negronis, Manhattans, stuff. They're high quality. They're made in Italy. Yeah. So anyway, we packed a couple of those, some ice, a couple of snacks or whatever, and made our way up to the top of that. But the excitement, that's what Jason's Journeys is, really. I mean, and that's the essence of it. You find something. For me, I found something. It could be a restaurant in an alley in some small village, and I want to share it with people, and I want to figure out how to dovetail or weave that into the experience overall, and with the hope that people are maybe not as excited about it as I am, but at least enjoy it and feed off of my passion. I mean, if it's a really good meal, or if it's a really entertaining guy making mozzarella, or we do a pizza class in somebody's home. It's a real authentic experience with a true pizzaiolo that's trained professionally in Napoli, that uses the oven that's 850 degrees, and the pizza is 90 seconds, and it's got to be 12 inches. There's all kinds of stuff in Italy about DOC and everything. So anyway, as you can tell, so I could just run with it. That pulse is quickening as we go.
And I will close with this. It's just like Bella Sera, where you said, I'm going to provide a unique experience, because no one's going to get the same experience with any other tour company in Italy. They're not getting the same one they're getting with you. There's hidden gems and different things like that. So I don't go. We go to Florence, but we do a specialized little food tour in the Mercato Centrale. Not just we. You can go to the Accademia or the Uffizi or the Colosseum if you're in Rome or something. You don't need me per se for that. I hire guides to do those things, certified guides in Italy. I like to take you to the other little things, and certainly we're not going to walk by the Colosseum and skip it, because it's that important, particularly if you are one of those people that may only make it to Italy once or twice in your lifetime. But I'm going to give you what I consider to be true Italy, true Tuscany, true Amalfi. This was really fun. Like I told you before, you were one of the first people I thought about when I thought I want to interview interesting entrepreneurs, people who have done unique things and are doing unique things. And so this has been even more fun than I expected, and I expect it to be a good time. Thank you very much for taking the time today and doing this.
My pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot to me. It's a great gesture. It's great to see you. It's been a while.
Too. Honestly, I want you to enjoy Italy. Know things are going well here. But
okay, keep an eye on things for you. Let me know if things don't go quite as planned.
Well.
But
from what I can
I'll
tell,
actually be back
really
there. So. I'll be back there in a couple of weeks, and I'm dipping in and out for my next venture in Southeast Asia. But thank you so much. I'm going to have some Vermi. This is cheese I got from Sardinia that's made with the maggots. Did you ever see that on TV?
No.
Yeah.
Do I need to watch more? I need to watch more cooking television, I think.
Yeah, you should watch that.
A race for the best pesto, but now I know.
It's not a race. Let's just
search
say.
For the great
anyway,
best pesto. Thank you very much, Jason Capps.
Thanks, Kevin.